So what evidence did you want to bring forward today?
Well, first is on embryonic development. So there's this, so the chapter is from the Quran. It's chapter 23, verse 12 to 14.
Okay. Is this where it describes the embryo as looking like chewed gum?
Yes.
Yeah. How is that remotely scientific evidence of anything? Because, and I'm asking this, do you think that people there at that time had never seen an embryo?
Well, they hadn't, but God had.
No, why would you? Okay, see, this is a problem with people in modern culture, especially city people, who think that people who were farmers and ranchers
a long time
ago did
not
see embryos. Miscarriages happen all the time with animals and with humans. The very notion that at any point in recorded history there was nobody who was familiar with what an embryo looked like is bizarre. It's absurd. We've always known. But saying that there's an embryo that looks like chewed gum is not surprising, and it doesn't enlighten us about anything at all that's scientific. So here's a passage that isn't remarkable, and yet you're viewing it as if there's some profound scientific information there when there's not.
Yeah. In my opinion, well, I can understand where you're coming from, but 1400 years ago, back in when the Arabs back then, there were a lot of illiterate people who were there. There were really no scientists or doctors or engineers back then.
Do you think that
Did I mention scientists or doctors?
Yeah, saying
not
something
once.
Looks like chewed gum is not scientific.
But also, I didn't mention science or doctors. I mentioned farmers and people. Miscarriages happened at an astonishing rate back then, and anybody who was a rancher knew about this. We knew about breeding even before we knew about genetics. This is how we ended up with domesticated animals and dogs. And there's absolutely nothing in that passage that it was of any scientific value.
What do you think, Saad? Does that evidence that you brought forward kind of maybe not hold as much weight?
Well, honestly speaking, you guys always have the good answers to these things. So, and plus, I'm not really an expert on the Quran myself. So, for me all I did basically was I tried to look at certain articles. At certain passages, and try to understand what they mean. Yeah. And this one was very interesting because, in my opinion, back then, people. The only way you could get information like this is from divine source.
Okay,
hang on. No. Hold on. That's not even
First of all,
true.
The fact that it's your opinion that the only way they could have got that information was a divine source is completely irrelevant. It's whether or not you have an informed opinion. Have you studied the history? Have you seen what other writings there were? Do you know what people knew about biology back then?
I've studied Islamic history, and I know that back those were the dark ages. They would literally bury babies alive back then.
But
women had zero rights.
That doesn't answer my question.
Yeah, does that remotely respond to the fact that people had seen those kinds of things at the time?
And so you're looking at the Quran and seeing this passage, and you're committing what I call Doyle's fallacy. You look at it and you say, wow, I can't imagine how people could have known about embryos, so it must have been divine knowledge and divine intervention. And yet I just described to you a number of different ways that people throughout all of recorded history and before could very well and likely did know about embryos. You are reaching to the supernatural for which there is no evidence, and what makes this worse is you are then trying to use this conclusion as if it is evidence for the supernatural, which makes your entire argument circular. So you start with an argument from personal incredulity. I can't believe people understood about this. I haven't looked into it. I haven't researched it. I haven't figured out what people did or didn't know, but I just can't believe that they knew about embryos. Therefore, God must have said it, and I will use that as evidence that there's a God and the Quran points us to it. That is fallacy upon fallacy right there.
Open yourself up to just looking for evidence and where that evidence leads.
And when you Google Quran and science, also Google Quran and science debunked, and you'll find that most of the things that you're going to find have already been thoroughly addressed with the same type of objections that we're launching. Because there's a reason I knew exactly where you were going with that verse about an embryo.
It's not because you came up with it.
Yeah, I didn't invent this today.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you know about the Hajj, or Muslims have to go to Mecca for
I think a lot of our,
Sure.
I know a little bit, and I'm sure Matt knows more, but I would love for you to, I mean, if you can sum it up very quickly, this is an educational show, so people who are watching.
You see how this is it now? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it the Earth? Is it the Earth that orbits around the sun, or is it
Yes.
the other way around?
No, the Earth orbits around the sun.
Okay, good. Thanks for helping me out there. So when you're in the Mecca, there's the big holy mosque or the masjid. When you go inside, there's the big cube, the square black square cube that people usually take walk around it 7 times, basically circular motion.
Hold on, Saad, is this convincing? Is this something that you think that...
This is what you're asking me to describe, though.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. They walk around.
Trying to draw a parallel. I'm just trying to draw a parallel from the Earth orbiting around the sun.
Yeah, that was his evidence.
Pilgrims walking around the square shaped.
Kids play Ring Around the Rosie.
Well, the sun's not black, it's not square, and we don't just go around it 7 times. So apart from somebody who goes around something and the Earth goes around something, I don't know how those two are connected.
Yeah, and really, I mean, let's take a moment of honesty for a second. Is that convincing? Is that really convincing, Saad?
To Muslims like me, yes.
Well, to people who've already made up their mind, I totally get it. But I would hope that you would have the same standards that we would have, that you would want to know the same things for good reasons as we do. Because you're not going to hold yourself to a much lower standard than you would expect other people to, because I would hope that you would care about yourself more than that. Why is this so much more convincing to a Muslim than a non-Muslim? You're saying people walk around a cube.
I don't understand how this could possibly be convincing. Here's something we already know, and humans mimic it, and so that shows that the Quran is true? That's just bizarre.
I mean, yeah. So, Saad, I hope that you call in next week. I hope that in your next round of investigation, you don't just look for things that are going to confirm what you already think.